Hey everybody, and welcome to another B3 bot tutorial. Okay, so today we're going to be learning how to configure our b3.xml file so our B3 works basically on our game server. Okay, so I've actually recorded this video many times over, and I've just decided just to try and shorten the whole video up because my last one took 30 minutes. So let's see if we can get this done in 10 minutes, shall we? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our gaming control panel here. Now, the reason why we're on our gaming control panel is because there's a very intricate step that needs to be taken in order to make sure and ensure that you have the correct settings in your server.cfg. So we're going to hit game servers, and we're going to go to the game server in question that we're going to set up B3 for. We're going to hit default config, and we're going to hit server.cfg. I'm going to wait for this to load up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to browse to this section here, which deals with log settings. This is important because B3 works based on reading a file called games_mp.log, for COD4 at least anyway. Other games files may vary. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the correct settings are in here. Now, in your welcome email you will be given this information. But for the purpose of saving time, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring that up here on my local computer, and I'm just going to paste that in here. So as you can see, we've enabled the log, we're using continuous buffer size, we're verifying that it's games_mp.log file that is going to be created, and we're going to enable the log damage set to 1. We're going to click save. We're going to go back to our main overview, and we're going to hit the restart button. Just going to wait for this to load, and then we'll continue on. Okay, so that's been restarted. Now what we're going to do is we're going to load up HSW. As you can see here, this is the game server. The very first thing and the only thing that we need to be concerned about at this moment in time are two things. One, what game is currently loaded. Now I'm not going to go into detail about if you have a mod running, because this will be covered in another tutorial because it's more advanced. But for the main purpose, if you currently have a mod running and you're setting it up to run on a server that runs a mod, please ensure you watch the other tutorial that deals with setting up your bot with a mod running on your game server. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to look at this section here called anti-cheat tool. If it's off, it'll be blank or set to none. If it's on, it'll tell you what sort of protection you have. Now typically it's Punk Buster, so we know that this is on. So what we're going to do is we're going to minimize this, and now we're going to head on over to our control panel for B3. As you can see, it's very basic right now, but obviously this is a very new company. It was only launched on the 1st of January 2013. So as time goes by, new things will probably be added here and the theme will probably change. But the general aspect of this will generally stay the same. So we're going to hit game servers. As you can see, the default is stopped. This is what it's going to look like when you first order your B3 and everything's set up. The next thing is to hit the default config files button. We're going to ignore all of these files until a later stage. If you want to learn how to configure these files, please watch the other tutorials that have either all been created or will be created in the future. We're going to hit b3.xml, which is going to click the link, and then we're going to browse down until we find the bit which deals with Punk Buster, and for that it is located here. So if your Punk Buster is turned off on your game server, we're just going to type off. If it's on, like ours is, we're just going to hit on. So that's set. Now I'm just going to scroll up and we're going to fill out the main information here. Very first thing is to make sure you put your ID in. So our ID to log into this control panel is B3BH-12. The next thing we're going to do is put the same corresponding here. This is the username, this is the password, this is the host location, and this is the database name. we're going to type in our password for our bot, which is this, and this would have obviously been sent to you by email. It's the same password you use to log into Control Panel. Now I will make a very important note here. If you do decide to change your password to the Control Panel, you need to inform me via ticket, otherwise your bot will not work. The reason being is that your password is succinctly throughout the entire network of B3, such as your database, your control panel, your echelon, etc, etc. Everything is all integrated, so it needs to be uniform. Okay, generally though, you won't need to change this password as it's a 10 out of 10 strength password, which means that it's very hard to crack and very hard to brute force. I won't go into detail into those subjects, but if you want to learn more, feel free to check out Wikipedia. Okay, so next, what we're going to do is we're going to change our name. So for this, I'm just going to type b3.com, just so it's customized. We're not going to bother with the prefix because I'm happy with this, but you can change this to your liking. As you can see, it is color enabled, so you can use different colors if you like. You set your time zone here, so for the UK it's GMT. Do not change any of these settings, period. Otherwise you could run into issues in the future. Just leave it default. The next thing is your password, so we're just going to go and grab our password from the game server control panel. Just going to go back into our server.cfg here, and we'll scroll down to the location that deals with Archon, and we can find that right here. Now whilst we're here, actually we've already restarted the server, so that's great. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to head on over to the B3 bot control panel, and we're just going to paste that password there. We're going to simply go back over here and grab the port as well. We're going to scroll down, and it's asking us for the IP. We'll paste that in the two sections here. If your game server is a BF3 server, sometimes you may have a different IP for your Archon, and sometimes you might have a different IP for your public. This is the join IP address, and this is the Archon IP address. Just make sure that you check with your host before putting the settings in. Otherwise, your Archon might not be accepted. We're going to scroll down here just to double check something. We're just going to make sure that XLR stats is in here. Now, if you haven't purchased your XLR stats, you can highlight this and simply remove it, because it's not necessarily required if you don't have XLR stats add-on, which is, I believe, currently the price is 50 pence per month. But as we do have it enabled, we're just going to leave that in. Now, the very last thing is the FTP information. This is the most important section, because if you don't fill this properly, then your B3 bot will not accept commands. B3 runs based on reading its games_mp.log file. Sometimes this file is named differently, such as games.log, but either way it runs via a log, and the game tells B3 what's happening in the game real time, and so when you kick someone or ban someone, it happens in real time as well. Okay, so we're going to fill in our username. Now this username is for your game server. Everything here is for your game server, not your B3. Just keep that in mind. So our username is going to be YouTube demo. And the password is a generic computer model that I picked up from Wikipedia, which I believe was LNX. Okay, so here is going to be the IP address of your FTP. Now to save time, I've already brought up the FTP information here. So we're going to grab the IP address, going to put it there. The default port is being used, so that's port 21. If it's a different port for you, you need to put the different port here. Be very aware that if you delete the colon, things are going to not work and you're going to have a bad day. So just make sure that you be very careful when you're entering this information. If you do come into problems though, feel free to contact me via support ticket and I'll do my best to help you. The next thing is we're just going to fill in here the information where this directory is located. So we're going to go head on over, and we're just going to show you that this is the root for the game server, and we're going to hit main, and we're just going to refresh the location here, and as you can see, here is games_mp.log. So we're going to grab this location here, we're going to go back to our control panel, we're going to paste that in, and then we're going to go back and just make sure there's no extra forward slashes or missing forward slashes. It needs to read like a URL. So we've got at IP address using the port / and then the folder as named here, then the directory name. We've got another one here, so we can remove that and the extra / and then the log file. Now before you start your B3 and everything else, it's always good practice to copy from the FTP start to the FTP finish, put it in a browser and press enter. Now this will log in to your FTP. It will then browse to the location you've given it and try and open this file. If you get any error whatsoever, this means that your B3 will not work. There is either an error in the URL that you've given it, such as the username or password is incorrect, or you're missing a colon, or you've incorrectly set the wrong path to the file. So always double check this. The typical one though is people don't fill in the port correctly. Sometimes they have a different FTP port. Okay, so as you can see, we have a log file created here. So we're going to close that. We're happy and satisfied that this now will work. We're just going to go over our settings and make sure everything's correct. There is one thing that I did forget to mention, and it's the parser. COD 4 is currently our game that we're going to be setting B3 up for, so COD 4 is going to be the parser. There's additional ones that's listed here, so if you have, say, a COD World at War, it's going to be COD 5, and so on and so forth. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to contact me via support ticket, and I'll do my best to help you. We're just going to go ahead and double check everything is all set correctly. Scrolling down, everything is. All this extra stuff will be covered in later tutorials, so we're not really concerned about that. Let's just get B3 up and running. So we're just going to click save. Okay, so we're happy that's been set. We're going to go to B3, and we can see here that the status is stopped. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to try and head on over to the game and load up the game. Now it's highly likely that I won't be able to record the game, but if I am, you'll see it. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, so if you guys can see the game now, that's great news, because I just spent about 15 minutes trying to customize my game settings to make sure window mode was operating. If not, then I guess I'll be editing this video and yeah, snip snip. Okay, so let's go on over to select a player, and we don't really need to be playing, we can just hit the team and then spectate. Excellent. So now we're spectating. Okay, so we're just going to press, I believe, Alt Tab. Let's see, Alt Tab, here we go, until we get to our browsers. You just want to hold Alt and then press Tab until you get to the actual browser, unless you've only got the two things open. Okay, so we've already logged in, so now we're just going to hit the start button. So let's go ahead and hit the start button. Okay, and let's go back over to our game. And we should start seeing some B3 messages. There we go. That's good. So we're just going to wait for it to finish loading here on a brand new startup, it can take some time to start caching all the information that the game server has. So once you've started it fresh and you see those messages disappear, it's not always a great sign to say, oh, it's finished, because sometimes it does take a bit of a long time, say about an extra 20 seconds after you see the messages disappear. Okay, so it's been about 20 seconds now, so what we're going to do is we're just going to first verify that the B3 is running. So we're going to hit the T button, which brings up our say all command. Then we're going to hit Shift and 1, which will be the exclamation mark, B, and then 3, and we're just going to press enter. Okay, let's type it again. There you go. Okay. As I said, sometimes on the first run, it doesn't always catch the very first one. Okay, so now we know that B3 is listening to commands. We know B3 is running. So what we have to do now, because we're the only user on our game server, we can register as the super admin. So the very first thing what we're going to do here is we're going to hit the T again, going to hit the exclamation mark, and if you read the welcome email in full, you would have seen that one of the things it advises you is to first go into your server as soon as you hit the start button and register. And to register as super admin, you're going to simply type I am God. It's a very superficial thing to say, but unfortunately that's the way it works. So we're going to type that, press enter, and as you can see it now says you are now a super admin. Yay. Okay. So as you can see here now, the rules are starting to be printed automatically, because this is what is set. You can set all these rules yourself and the time in which they appear, but let's read them all now by just typing exclamation mark R. As you can see, the rules are starting to print out. Okay, so we verified that all that is correct and accurate, and now it's time to exit the server, and let's just review what we've done and anything else that I need to advise you. So we're just going to hit the X button on here, and we're going to go back into our config file. We're just going to review the finer portions. Most important details are your settings for your MySQL. Now this information again should be your ID to log in to this control panel, colon, and then your password to log in to this control panel, at localhost, or if in future we have indeed moved to a new location, this might be an IP address or some kind of reverse URL, such as webserver.b3bothost.com maybe. Either way, there will be an at, but for this we're just going to use localhost. And then obviously your ID again, which, as I said earlier, this is to show the database name. We've verified that everything is all set and accurate there. We're definitely happy with the games_mp.log because that works. Otherwise what we just did wouldn't work. And everything else is set correctly. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to want to obviously learn is how to customize all these different files, and simply by exploring the files in question you will be able to see exactly what you can and can't edit, where you should edit. But one thing I will always say is always take a backup of the file right before you edit it. So for example, if we didn't know what we were doing here, we would simply highlight all by pressing Ctrl and A to select all, Ctrl C or right click copy to copy, load up a new notepad, paste it in, minimize it, and away it goes. Then we can go and screw up our XML file all we like without the worry of not knowing whether it's a hit or miss sort of situation. Okay, so for this tutorial, I guess we're now done. In the future tutorials, I will show you how to set up your echelon, your XLR stats, how to modify these individual files here, points of interest, and anything else that might be relevant or of high interest from the general B3 customer community from myclientservices.com. Okay, so thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I'm very happy it didn't take 30 minutes. I think 21 minutes is good enough. So other than that, have a pleasant day.